Hey friends, welcome to the Thrive Advisor podcast, where we help small tax advisory firm owners build practices that are actually sustainable and profitable. I'm your host, Aaron Siegel, and if you're listening to this, you probably know your stuff. You've mastered the Augusta rule, backdoor Ross, cost seg studies, all the technical brilliance that makes you invaluable. Maybe you came up through one of those $10,000 masterminds where you learned 100 clever tax strategies. But here's what they didn't teach you: how to run the business that delivers those strategies. So you're doing great work, but you're drowning in admin. You're chasing documents at 10 p.m., juggling portal uploads and signature requests, and wondering when independent started to feel like trapped. When I started my own firm, I was in that exact spot. I was the bottleneck and the bandwidth problem. My desk was a graveyard of sticky notes. My inbox had way too many unread messages. And I genuinely believe that the next hire could fix it all. And spoiler alert, it doesn't. Hiring doesn't create clarity. It just exposes where the clarity is missing. And the reason this matters isn't just time, it's energy. Most firm owners aren't burned out because of their clients. They're burned out because of the context switching. So that constant gear shifting between serving and sorting. Systems don't just automate tasks, they automate your decisions. And when you automate your decisions, you get your focus back. And I still remember the morning it hit me. It was 6 a.m. in March. I opened my laptop to get ahead. And instead of progress, I found a to-do list that looked like a crime scene. And I thought, if this is what success feels like, I don't want more of it. And that was the day I decided to rebuild everything. Not the service, but the systems. Today's episode is the 3 automations to build before you hire your first team member. Because if your system is chaotic, hiring just multiplies it. This podcast exists because I don't want you to burn years learning this the hard way. The Thrive Advisor Collective and this show are about turning expertise into calm, profitable businesses without adding chaos or headcount. If you've ever said, I'm great at tax, but I hate running this business, you are in the right place. So when I used to say, I just need help, what I really meant was, I can't see where the work lives anymore. And here's my rule: people don't create order. They amplify whatever system already exists. Once worked with a client who had hired a part-time admin to handle communication. And 3 months later, she was cleaning up more than ever and frustrated more than ever. The issue here wasn't the admin, it was the invisible process that the admin was trying to use. Taking the time to draw out every touch point on paper and build system automations around those made everything feel lighter. So if your processes are messy, a new hire won't fix it. They'll just document the mess faster. But once you've built clarity, every future hire becomes a force multiplier instead of a babysitting job. So, before systems were in place, my calendar was a maze. Help desk pings, just checking in emails, last second uploads. And after the systems were put into place, the noise didn't disappear. It just got channeled. So the difference was night and day in stress, responsiveness, and honestly, my mood at home. So let me put it this way. Hiring without systems is like adding passengers to a car without a steering wheel. You move faster towards a wreck. So let's start with the simplest win here: communication. How many times have you typed the same messages? So got your docs, reviewing your docs, you're next. It's tiny, but it eats hours. So here's a before and after weeks, a snapshot of how this used to be. So before, Friday was my update day. I would send probably 30 or 40 status emails by hand and then still get follow-ups because people miss them. And then after, now there's automation in place. So when things go into in review or awaiting the client or complete, messages fire automatically when that status changes. I got back 5 to 6 hours a week. People feel more informed. And here's an email copy that I actually use. Feel free to steal it, tweak a line if you want. But subject line simple: quick status, you're in review. Hi, Mr. Client, quick update. Your tax return is now in review. You'll receive your next action within 3 business days. No need to reply unless something has changed. So that last line, no need to reply unless something has changed, cut the noise down by about half. So the principle here is automate the reassurance, not the relationship. Automation isn't cold, it's just consistent. and consistency builds trust. So here are some do this now steps that take you 5 minutes or so. Next time you get to your email, open the sent folder. I want you to search for things like got your docs, your next, in review. Take one and turn that most frequent one into a template that you can use. So add a clear next step and that no reply line. And then connect it to a status change in your tool, or just use it as a canned response. So save it for later. So common things to avoid: vague timelines never work. So promise your window, if that's going to be 3 business days, whatever that looks like. The fuzzy ownership is a problem. So who's going to move the ball next? Is it you or is it them? And be sure to say that. And then try not to stack a lot of asks in one email. So one email equals one action. If you ask for docs and to schedule a call and to sign an engagement, people will freeze or do one or some. It won't work the way you want. And I also noticed this. After I automated things, I got more thank you emails than ever. So people value clarity over a bunch of chatter. That's leadership in disguise. So next up, let's talk data collection. For years, I believed chasing documents was just part of the job. Every March, I would send 50 still need your 1099 emails. By the third reminder, I was resentful. And honestly, I would assume the clients were either embarrassed or didn't know what happened. So the first time I set up an organizer that auto reminded people what was missing, I laughed out loud. I couldn't believe how simple it was and how much it changed my stress level. The system did the chasing instead of me. So some things you can do now. Look at the 10 most common items you ask your clients for every year. And so you can turn that into a starter organizer or a request list template. And for each item in there, you can add in something simple like, why does this matter? How can they find it? An example or a screenshot. You can even record a Loom if you want. But then start turning on the general reminders. So we might remind them at 3 days and then 7 days, 14 days. But add an all set message at the end. So when they hit 100%, let them feel good. Say, great, we have all of your documents. It closes the loop. You can move on. In the middle, you can have templates like, hey, it looks like we're 90% complete. That's amazing. The last things we need are A and B. Once those are in, you are fully queued. The other is no rush reply, right? So the portal updates me automatically when you upload things. If you're stuck, send me a message. Let me know where. We don't want people to feel like they need to catch you up. We just want them to do the thing we need them to do. Some other pitfalls you can avoid. Try not to dump your brain into a request list. So less is more. We really only want to ask for things that are going to be changing the return or the plan. And if it turns out that there are a lot of requests that need to be made, break them up into chunks because inevitably you will end up asking for the things they missed the next time. So try to keep it as simple as you can. The next is invisible progress. So if your client doesn't know where they stand, if it's not a percent or a checklist, they're not going to have the motivation to finish. So one example, I love Stanford Tax. It has a little toggle at the top that shows them, here's the percent done. Here's the number of items we are missing. We can add things directly to that checklist if we find things missing as we go. Those are very motivating. It really helps with client engagement. The other is a nagging tone. So especially when we get closer, I'm recording this on October 15th. The nagging tone certainly comes out the closer we get to this date, right? But let the system do the nudging. Keep your messages kind. And so the one thing with templates that's really nice is you can write those when you're in a good mood, and when things are hectic, it still sounds nice. So why did this help me be on time? Once the system started chasing people, my patience started to come back. So I stopped resenting the process because I wasn't manually herding cats. It turned friction into a natural rhythm. And so that peace shows up everywhere. So to sum this one up, say it with me: collect documents once, chase never. Now, next up is the engine. So this is going to be your workflow triggers. So inside of your project system, whether that's TaxDome or Carbon or ClickUp or Trello, whatever, you want to build templates that automatically create the next task when a status changes. So an example chain would be when you file the return, you can have the system create a thank you note. It can request a Google review with a link, schedule the next tax planning call, can remind you to archive their tax prep docs to a folder. No one needs to remember what happens next. The system remembers. So automate what happens next. My first week after triggers. So I stopped ending days with, what did I forget? It was great. I took a Saturday off in March. Nothing broke. The single weekend felt like a raise. It was fantastic. It's worth doing. So some do it now steps. First is just pick a service. So let's say your 1040 work. Start to write down milestones either on a whiteboard if you have it or a piece of paper. So look at like intake, prep, reviewed, filed, post-filing. And under each, list the next actions you always do. So keep this simple, but like, what are the things you have to do to move this thing forward? That's what you use to build a template. And then you're going to create those rules that will automatically add these when the status changes. And you can test this on a beta file now that we're coming out of season and start to adjust the deadlines or the owners after if you have staff. So really, the most complex thing I see is people buy these complicated templates. And when they do that, it doesn't fit their workflow. So if you can start simple, as simple as you can, and then start adding things on, that will work so much better. So the pitfalls to avoid is the over-engineering thing. You're not building a NASA console here. We're building a bike lane. We don't want to be dependent on someone remembering, especially us. The busier we get, the harder that becomes. So your triggers should rely on the status, not someone remembering to click a button. And the other thing to avoid is no owners. So even if you are the owner and you're the only one, make sure that those tasks have you as the owner and that it assigns you a due date. When your systems start handling the sequence, you start thinking like a CEO. So you get to log in Monday and it's all queued up for you. There's no texts, there's no Slack messages, no fire drills. You don't have to think about what should I do today? That's the difference between running a business and being run by your business. And once you taste that, you won't go back. So when these three automations hum, something shifts. You finally see your real bottlenecks. And sometimes that realization stings. You discover the bottleneck was you holding every checklist in your head. And that's actually good news because when the chaos lives in your head, you get to control when it ends. And that's when hiring becomes strategic, not desperate. Remember, we don't hire for hope. We hire for precision. You're not looking for a savior. You're looking for a specialist who can step into a system that already works. So some ways you might know that you're ready to hire. One is that you've got, let's say, 90% template coverage for your core services. So you've built the templates, you know they're ready to go. You've got daily seats in your calendar that the system could fill without you. So you can have your tasks scheduled. You can see when these tasks are coming up. And then the third one is look at the mistake rate. So inside of these workflows, our goal is to get this as close to perfect as we can. So we want to start to see where do things fail. And if it's more than 5 or 10%, then we know we have to fix things. But once we're under, let's say 5%, we know the process, not your heroics, are producing the consistency. And then when you make the hire from that place, everything changes. So your assistant's going to walk in, follow the playbook, and they're going to be adding value instead of creating questions for you. So inside the Thrive Advisor Collective Onschool, we help map this with you. So we'll identify bottlenecks, design automations, decide who to hire when, and not sooner, not later. The link's in the show notes. You can just search it Onschool. We'd love to have you there. And some bonuses here. So questions I commonly hear is, won't automation make me sound generic? And the answer is personalize the edges, but standardize the middle of your message. So your intro and your wrap can be totally personalized, but that status statement needs to be identical. We are not reinventing that wheel. Next question, as always, what tool should I use? And the answer is the one you'll actually use is the tool you should use. So start with what you already have. Here's the thing. Tools don't fail. It's the abandoned setups that fail. And so once you commit, just go all in, learn that system, build that out. Don't worry about switching it up because every time you switch, you're going to have to kind of go back in time and start over again. Next question I love. What if my clients ignore portals? And been there, felt that. The answer here is give them a choice. So first one is upload to the portal. The second is I offer a secure file sharing tool that is independent of an upload. So if they don't want to upload the portal, there is a shiny red button that's a secure file upload, and the system still gets the outcome. We basically don't let that perfection block progress. So if we can get them to click a button and upload a file, that is better than them just replying to an email and attaching a PDF that we've got to deal with later. And the last question here would be, how do I measure if this thing's even working? Really set simple metrics for yourself. So like for me, it was, unread emails were under 20. Pick a number you like. The percent of projects with the next step. So I've got this written on the sticky notes on my monitor. It's always what's next. So for every client, we get off a call, the first question I answer is what is next? And my goal for that is at least 95% of my clients have a next step identified for themselves. And then the other one I track religiously is average reply time to email. So with my clients, back before I started this automation, there could be emails that could sit for a full week and I wouldn't know any better. So now I have automations in place that will warn me if I'm exceeding my time limits, and my average response time to clients in busy season right now is under 5 business hours. So just by having systems in place and automations there, you can cut that time dramatically, which improves the client experience, helps you with retention. It is well worth doing. Let's recap. So the Thrive order of operations here is simplify, then systematize, and then hire staff. So the takeaway for this week is automate what happens next. Builders don't hire to escape chaos. They hire to extend clarity. So pick one of these and ship it this week. So a communication template that's tied to a status change, a client request, let's say an organizer with reminders, or just a workflow trigger from a status change. You've got 3 months before our next busy season hits again. It's going to come fast, but use those weeks wisely. You'll be amazed how much lighter your firm feels when just one of these things can run without you. If you're ready to build systems with advisors who get it, come join us in the Thrive Advisor Collective. The link's down in the show notes. But more importantly, if this sparked a light bulb moment for you, share this episode with another advisor who's about to hire out of desperation instead of strategy. Let's help save them the headache. You've been listening to the Thrive Advisor Podcast. Work smarter, serve better, thrive always. We'll see you next time.